Outside, Isabella sees that there's no one here and wishes the culprit had foolishly remained in the dream dungeon. Elma remarks that it could have made things much simpler, as Snow wonders if someone who leaves such easy clues could truly be her relative. She mutters that everyone is willing to risk their lives and dedicate themselves to rigorous training to become the new head. Isabella says one cannot understand the true intentions of others, which is frightening, and they don't need obvious villains, since true scoundrels wear thick masks to conceal their nature. However, Snow says conducting such conniving actions in a success dispute has never happened before, so Isabella suggests that some unsavory characters might be mixed in with the potential heirs. Luce asks Elma if disputes in families are always like this, so he mutters that as far as he knows, there haven't been any disputes like this in the earldom of the Edvans family, since they originally relied on the strength of their head to secure their position and don't wield much political influence. On the other hand, Snow's family is one of the top 5 major noble families in the country, so intensity of their internal conflicts is likely unmatched. Luce asks Elma if something's bothering him, so he says normally, one would want to check the aftermath if they stirred up such a big event as an attempted assassination on a noble's daughter, so it's probably safe to do so from atop the cliff near them. However, they can't see anyone from here. Isabella tells him to not worry since this is an issue of the Marquis family now, and admits it's no question he saved them. Snow blushingly declares that she was deeply impressed by the formidable figures of them, both overwhelming the Podarge, and says she wants to become strong like them both, so that she can be a worthy head of the Marquis family. She thanks them, but Elma says hearing this from her is truly an honor, and Isabella mutters that it's rare for Snow to open her heart to people like this. Later, a man menacingly takes his seat at a throne and admits that man cannot be underestimated, so they're going to move on to the next step. Several days after the incident, Elma tells Luce the house of Count Haltod is a prestigious family, so if they've been invited, they have to go and adhere to the dress code. They enter a clothing store and Luce wonders if it'll have anything that suits her before a woman welcomes them into the Phoenix garment store and asks what they're looking for today. She sees that they're an armored knight and a jester and says the scars from battle make their appearance look scruffy. Elma reveals that he's looking for attire to be welcomed at the Marquis family, which shocks her. She finds a suit for Elma and he says he likes this one, so the woman turns to Luce. The woman takes her to a separate corner and hides it from Elma with a curtain. Inside, as Luce tries one dress after another, she's not sure if any of these fit her and suddenly spots a dress beside her. Outside, Elma's stunned by how beautiful Luce looks in the dress and says it suits her perfectly, so she happily asks if that's really the case. A few days after the incident at the tower, Elma remarks that Snow has invited both him and Luce, and they ended up visiting one of the mansions of the Marquis family. Elma and Luce are stunned by how gorgeous the mansion is, and she hurriedly wonders if she's out of place. However, Isabella asks what they're talking about when they're Snow's biggest benefactors. She tells them to not worry since the head of the household is too busy and hasn't participated in this much. As they're walking, she reveals that Marquis Haltod is noticeably cold even towards his daughter, Snow, since he seems to prioritize practicality over other formalities, and she wouldn't ordinarily attend such events as well. Elma remarks that he wanted to confirm the Marquis family's stance on the recent series of events, as Luce asks Isabella if Haltod is really that intimidating, so Isabella tries to scare her and says it's a good thing Snow takes after her mother's lovely face, hearing which Elma remarks that she's surprisingly quite easygoing. They decide to head to the guest room first, but Isabella is shocked to see Haltod sitting at the table with Snow, who says he's glad Snow ended up resembling his wife as well since she's beautiful. Sounds like someone's in trouble. Isabella hurriedly apologizes, but Snow tells her to not do that since he just wanted to have a chat with Elma. Elma takes a seat, remarking that this is a stroke of luck, but there's no way, he's just a funny-looking father. Luce nervously asks Elma if she's behaving properly, so Haltod tells her to not worry and just speak naturally since there's no one but them here after all. Luce thanks him and whispers to Elma that Haltod doesn't seem as scary as she'd thought, so Haltod mutters that he hopes that's the case. Elma remarks that since Luce is a commoner, and he has been disowned by the Earl of Edvan, it's unlikely that he's up to something, but he should remain vigilant with everything that's happened recently. Haltod thanks Elma for helping Snow since there have been dangerous incidents occurring recently. He tells Snow that candidates for the next head must be willing to risk their lives, and the one who survives is the winner in the end. Elma asks if he's considering it a part of the inheritance dispute hearing, which Isabella hurriedly asks what he's saying to the Marquis. Haltod tells her to not raise her voice like that since the food will become tasteless, and says an investigation will obviously be conducted, and if the culprit is discovered to be from the Marquis family, he will execute them himself, but that's only if they're within the Marquis family. Elma asks if he doesn't think this is a heritage dispute, so Haltud questions if he's asking what his viewpoint is regarding the whole series of events and mutters that he pretended to be filled with righteous indignation at his daughter's disrespectful words and tried to prod him lightly. However, it's not good to be testing someone's patience like that. Elma is about to say that's not the case, but he inwardly admits it's true, and that it's possible Haltud himself is the mastermind behind all this. Haltud sees that he's probably just stalling for time and tells him to not worry, because they're also taking the incident at the Tome of Lamentations very seriously. He asks Elma what kind of person he thinks the culprit is, so Elma believes it must be a person who has more information about dream holes than the kingdom itself, and they believe it can be used for something. Haltud suddenly declares that for generations, he has managed the land where high-level dream holes run rampant, and asks if that's why he thinks the Marquis family is suspicious. All the girls are intimidated, and Luce asks Elma if they should apologize. Haltud says information about the dream holes is not easily obtained, and while he can replicate a lot, he can't replicate something like this, so he has doubts as well, but a phenomenon similar to this is occurring too. He reveals that one day, an adventurer suddenly began to rise to prominence with unstoppable momentum, so he wonders what's guiding him and asks Elma if he doesn't think these similar occurrences are odd, hearing which Elma shockingly wonders if he's talking about him. Haltud suddenly starts laughing and says it was just something he said, and by connecting seemingly suspicious points, it's easy to put two and two together, but it's best to not be attached to a single idea. Elma realizes why his father disliked Haltud so much, since his father is stubborn and as inflexible as ice, while Haltud is cunning and wicked without a clear picture, so there's no way they could possibly get along. Haltud says he's betting on him since he survived and defeated a King's Wander, which is really rare. He admits Elma's class is strange, but his strength is impeccable, and suggests that he should marry Snow, hearing which Snow starts blushing and Luce chokes on her food. Isabella says it's unusual for a commoner and a lady to be in a relationship, but Haltud asks Elma if he isn't from the Edvain family and says he could lend him his strength to control the union and take over as he wishes. Isabella is surprised to hear that Elma is of noble birth, and he says he's satisfied with his current position and would prefer that he doesn't touch on that subject. Sounds like someone's got family problems. Haltud decides to get to the point and tells Elma he wants him to participate in a large-scale request under the same conditions as last time, which surprises both Elma and Luce. As Elma and Luce are leaving, he remarks that Marquis came to the same conclusion that he did. If by chance the dream destructions were to occur, the city would perish and thousands would die. In that case, Luce says they shouldn't go ahead with the large-scale request, and Elma admits that's true, but Marquis intends to proceed with it, and it's probably the last chance to catch the culprit too. She asks why Haltud told them about it then, so he admits he's an unpredictable man and wants to solve the case, but it's too dangerous. He tells Luce they shouldn't act rashly since they need more time. Telt tells Elma and Luce he had a bad feeling when they invited him because his sixth sense reacted, and not going turned out to be the right choice. Luce says he should have told her sooner if that was the case, but he hurriedly says his sixth sense is accurate in detecting nearby monsters or treasure chests, but it's hardly reliable for bad feelings or the like, and spreading rumors without evidence is a crime, so he couldn't inform anyone. Elma admits data sharing was often an issue, and it must be an even bigger problem in this world. Telt admits he's let rumors spread on purpose before, so Luce says she'll let Maybelle know about this, but he hurriedly asks her to not do that since she gets more annoying every time they meet. Elma asks if it's possible for that skill to react to other things and remarks that he's oddly bothered by this since he feels like he's missing something. Telt asks Elma if he's still holding a grudge, but Elma says that's not the case and reveals that they got some rare items in addition to getting close to the Marquis family. Shocked, Telt asks if they met the rumored Snow, and reveals that there's probably going to be another request soon and Kalos will be in charge of it this time as well. Elma asks Telt what he will do, so he says the best option is to not get involved and asks Elma if he thinks the same. Elma goes to meet Harleen since there's something he really needs to confirm regarding the request, so Matilda asks him to let her confirm first. Harleen tells Matilda a sudden request is abrupt and rude since she's busy with paperwork and has negotiations and discussions after this. As she's telling Matilda off, Elma says they should reschedule since this seems to be too sudden. However, Harleen happily rushes out of her office and annoyingly tells Matilda she should have informed her about that. She asks him to come in, and once she's heard everything, she thanks Elma again for helping Snow. Elma asks if she knows about the request they received from Haltud, so Harleen asks Matilda to step out for a moment. Harleen says she's heard from her messenger that Elma was asked to investigate the traitors in the raid. Confused, Elma inwardly admits he doesn't quite understand Haltud's thinking. She reveals that they are planning to announce recruitment for a large-scale conquer request. Elma mutters that this dream hole is troublesome since if a monster disaster occurs there, only adventurers of a really high level can enter. Harlan asks why he's asking for help related to that, so he says he needs the investigation report since during the Wandering Lord incident, there were no lone actors present and no one fled from the dream hole. Dungeon and the party formation was also decided by the guild, so it's hard to believe they're colluding. Bro's fantasy Sherlock Holmes. Elma believes they inadvertently lied or concealed the truth, so Harleen admits it's okay even though it's pointless to dwell on it. She hands him the papers and hopes he doesn't mention this to anyone else. The adventurers are stunned to see that the quest has a recommended level of 80 and Luce asks if it'll increase to 100 if the Dream Lord evolves again. Elma warily yawns and says he didn't get much sleep last night, remarking that he stayed up all the night reading the investigation report handed to him by Harlan. There were people whose skill sets could trick others and create a false alibi, but there wasn't enough detailed information to go on, and there are a lot of people in this world who don't have optimized skill sets, making it harder to predict. Luce cheerily asks she wants to protect the country and city too, and declares that they're comrades, so Elma thanks her. A voice annoyingly tells Elma he's been a bit too overconfident because of his success, but this raid is truly dangerous. Elma can't tell where the voice is coming from, so Luce tells him to look down, and he notices Hildy, who says he always mocks her and that she hasn't forgotten their duel. Elma yawns and admits he might have been a bit immature. He notices a scythe she's wielding and says it looks good on her, but Elma and Luce realize this is probably the scythe they sold recently. Elma asks if she's participating, so she declares that she has to participate as a B-rank adventurer. He says Colossus' sixth sense skill will probably help, so Hild asks how he knew about that. He explains that it seems like the easiest one to integrate since she's a magic swordsman. Kalos suddenly appears in front of them and smilingly says she can't force him, but she hopes they will join her. Kalos admits she's the one who suggested this to the Haltad's house, but something smells fishy since the main and branch families of the Haltad house aren't getting along as well as expected, and there also seems to have been an attempted assassination. Hildy declares that she'll help her, but Kalos admits the guild is really lacking resources this time, and tells Hildy to return the scythe to the shop, since she'll give her a decent sword. On the evening of the day the recruitment for the large-scale raid was announced, Luce and Elma had called for Zelt and Maybell. Elma says he has a favor to ask, but it's dangerous, and if they think it's not worth it, they can always refuse. Surprised, Zelt asks Elma if he's really planning to participate, so Elma admits that's the plan, and he can't ignore it since they intervened once before. Zelt says he understands that Elma has a strong sense of justice, but only idiots or those without money take on that kind of risk, so even if they don't intervene, the troops' nobles will handle it just fine. Elma explains that there's a high possibility of a traitor in the party, so he needs to have people he can trust. Bro's gathering the Avengers of this world. Zelt apologizes and says that makes him even less convinced, but Maybell cheerily says she's fine with joining, and says Zelt will join as well to repay his debt. Elma says no other group could be as efficient and safe as them four, so Zelt agrees and says he'll lend them a hand before he and Elma fist bump each other. The day of the large-scale request, Elma sees that 20 of Haltad's troops have been mobilized, so Zelt says that's quite suspicious since even if the reward amount is raised a little, regular adventurers are reluctant to participate. Elma tells Luce her new outfit looks good on her, and says it's better to have something than nothing since apart from the armor, the other abilities are just bonuses. Later, Elma gains resistance to 2 types of status ailments, as well as Magic Guard, which increases the power of his shield when attacked. He says he wants to ask a favor of Maybell and reveals that he wants to create an opportunity to raise her level. He asks if she can put all the skill points into Staff of Faith, so she says that's fine with her since she wants to concentrate her points into the skill tree. They reach the entrance to the submersed Ideal City. They see some Umayoni, so Elma rushes forward and says they're going after them. He orders Zelt to create an opening, Luce to strike and Maybell to cover their rear. Zelt hurriedly says he's pulling them too close, but Elma knocks them all away, and says it's not a problem, so Zelt chuckles and says he's an unrefined guy before muttering that they'll also be relied upon for the dream hole this time.